let's go ahead and call to order. And then do we need to take roll then?
Kevin Soundbart's present.
Aaron's not here tonight, so I'm actually taking a minute, so I can see everybody that's on. Oh,
Yep.
there's
Oh, and
Lexi.
here comes
Lexi,
Lexi.
good.
Here comes Lexi.
Hello.
Hi,
Good.
Lexi.
Hey,
Hi, Lexi.
Now we have a quorum. All right, well, good to see everybody. And so we're calling to order now. And we're just gonna do our roll call really quick. So Kevin started.
Scott Gresh, present.
Katie Miller present. Lexi, are you here?
You can see Lexi and Centron, so you know
Okay,
they're here.
Lexi and
That's
Centron are
Lexi
here.
and Centron.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I didn't
All
know
right.
the protocol.
All right. Okay, good to see everybody. If I don't know who's gotten a chance to take a look at the minutes. But does anybody have any corrections or changes to the minutes from the January 25th meeting, 2022?
no changes. I move they be approved. Kevin moves they be approved.
Thanks, Kevin.
Second.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so we got that
All in
taken care of.
favor?
So our,
No, all in favor.
oh, all in
All in
favor?
favor.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, now you're done.
Now they're approved. All right, thank you. Thanks, Mayor. All right, so we're gonna start with Chief Curtis. Updates from Webster Groves Police Department.
Katie, if we can we switch the agenda around a little bit? Jillian
Sure.
has the place she needs to be, so if we can let
Absolutely.
her and the SROs go first with just basically
Yeah.
introduce themselves, tell them,
We would love that.
explain what they do, and if you guys have questions for them, then I can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would like to start with the SROs. We should have Cameron McCullough and Cassie Thompson on. And I'll let them go each. I really want them to talk about what they do and how they interact with the kiddos, what they do on a daily basis, and actually what they do on their off time, even coming in on their off days and spending time with the kids. So I'm going to send it over to them so that way they can kind of explain more in detail because they are in the schools and they are more one-on-one. So Cassidy, why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay, well, it took me a second to get it unmuted, but everybody can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so my name's Cassie Thompson. Like she said, I'm an SRO. I'm up here at the high school. Every day, there are some things that we stay the same, but most of the time we just try to spend as much time with the kids as we can, get to know them, let them see that officers have a good face. Not all of us are bad. They can come to us. We're here to help them. And every day, I basically start out, I'm always in the front of the school. So I'm always greeting the kids as they come in. I say hi to them, good morning, everything. I even have kids stop and they want to have a small conversation or whatever. And then I'm also out on all the passing periods. So even on Halloween, like I handed out candy to all the kids, things like that. Just good things to keep that good rapport with them, so that they know that I'm here for them. I'm not scary. Come talk to me kind of thing. I also go to all the lunches. So since I did just start here in September, my goal for all the lunches was if I saw a kid sitting by themselves, which actually happened a lot thanks to COVID, I would always try to at least take one kid and talk to them, get to know them and things like that. It actually led to, I was able to get two kids to become friends because they were both sat alone at the same lunch together. So that was really good. They were very excited and they switched Snapchats because that's the big thing now. After lunches, I'm always outside too at the end of the days, and I'm always talking to the kids as they go home. A lot of the time, so we have some mute kids and just other like special needs children who ride the buses and they can't really get on sometimes. So I have stopped the bus a couple times so that I could get them on the bus. But they're all good kids, and like that's that's kind of what my day to day is, minus any of the crazy stuff that happens during the day and we got to take care of. But also like after school, like I'm actually at the school right now. It's the cheerleader senior night. So that's going on at halftime. And then it's one of the guys' last basketball games before districts. They have one more on Friday. But I'm pretty much at every single game. So if I can't make it, usually Cam is there. And if we need more than one, then Cam's usually with me. So we work all the basketball games. We had all the football games. We're always at graduation and dances. They had an activities fair with the Chelsea Center this year, so we were there. We also had like the choir and a cappella. They were on during one of the days. So we came in for them, or I did. We've also had, so we don't actually work the softball or soccer games, but I did come in and I kind of like came and watched the kids, because one of the girls I met at lunch was a softball player, was a freshman softball player. So I went ahead and like said hi and went and saw her. We also, so like I said, we go to all the dances. They didn't have it at Kirkwood, luckily, this year, but we do go to Kirkwood too. So like for the Turkey Day game, the big Turkey Day game and Chili Fest, we were here. And other things that we do inside the school, it's not every day, but we do talk and we go to the classrooms. So I just recently talked, it was the business law class. I just recently went in and talked to 2 of her hours. I go to the government class. I spoke to those kiddos. I think we had 2 classes last semester, and he just emailed me again to get in this semester too. And then I also go around for the admin talks, is what we call them. It's basically, I go from classroom to classroom. I talk about safety. A big thing I've done since I've gotten here was kind of get the bullying and their Blackboard rearranged. So that the kids can post and go on like an app versus calling, because these kids don't really call anymore. Just not they're part of their generation. So they can go on to Blackboard and they have an app and they can go in there, and there's also a way online that they can go in. They are working on another phone number just in case they wanted to call, but they can also do it anonymously now. So that also gets us the bullying and safety risk. So like if they see anything on Snapchat and they don't want anybody to know they told, we can get those reports hopefully a lot quicker.
Thanks, Cassie. That's amazing. That's amazing how many, like out of 9 to 5 hours that you guys are there for the kids.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here. Sometimes it feels like I live here. I'm not gonna lie.
All right. Well, thank you, Cassidy. And as you guys can see, I mean, you guys heard, she does a lot for the high school. She's there every day. A lot of her days that she's off, she comes in. You know, she comes in for most sporting events. The kids have really gotten to know her and, you know, confide in her. And that's kind of what we want. So I think she's done a great job this year with building relationships with the kiddos there. So Cameron, you want to go ahead and tell us what you do?
I actually have a quick question for Cassidy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Number one, awesome work. I mean, it's just awesome that you're meeting all the kids and having conversations with them, and obviously spending an incredible amount of time. And it's just, thank you so much. I did notice that Chief Curtis in his write-up also indicated that you speak sometimes at Avery Elementary School. So not only do you go to the high school, but you also speak to the grade schoolers at Avery. Which how does that go? How do they receive you, the little ones?
Honestly, the little ones they're amazing. They're always so excited to see us and talk to us and get to know us. Whenever I went to Avery, I did go out to the playground as well. And so they wanted to play tag or whatever else it was. But I also have been trying to make my way over to Bristol too. A lot of the times those kiddos happen to be outside doing some type of class thing. So I don't really get to spend that type of relationship with them. But it was interesting trying to talk, I guess, on their level for their age so that they could understand what I was saying when they would ask me questions and things like that. It was fun.
Awesome.
You know,
Yeah.
Centron asked a question in the chat, and this is probably a question for Chief Curtis. And I guess we're working on this anyway, which is what's the likelihood that we could do that at other elementary schools too?
There's a very good likelihood that both Cam and Cassidy are capable and can do that. Again, we want to touch base with the school districts to make sure that they're okay with what we want to do. But it's something that, based upon what we've talked about in the past, that we certainly want to do in the future.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Cassidy or comments or whatnot?
I am curious at the high school level, how much do you have like a mental health role?
Oh, referring to the kids, the students. So mental health is an insane increase right now. So a lot of the times they do need like kind of that quiet space and things like that. We do actually catch some kids like crying in the bathroom or something like, and so we try to get them, and I'll walk them down to the counselor's office and just see if I can get them in with somebody. But I have a great connection with our counselors, so we work hand in hand a lot of the time for all these kids. And I was actually one of their like trusted adults as well. So it was like whenever they had an issue, they would just come to me, talk to me for a minute, and go back to class. And it's just things like that. So one of the trusted adult programs that the school has is really important for these kids.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Cassidy? Okay, Cam, you're up. Tell us what you do.
All right. Well, just to piggyback off of what Cassidy said, I'm one of the SROs. I go to Bristol every, I believe, February. I typically like either read a book, participate with like a career day where I'll go in and talk to the kids there. They're not used to personal space. When you carry a gun on your waist and stuff like that, and the badge, the big shiny badge, they always want to come and be close to a cop, which is always great. I don't know if Chief should be hearing this, but I go to the station a lot and take a lot of stickers. They love the stickers. It's a big hit for them. Sorry, we probably need some more. Also go to Clark. Sometimes I'll sneak in at their recess and I'll go out there and play recess with them. That could be fun. They have a huge basketball game going on. I kind of like that because I'm only 5'9" and I can dunk on them and stuff like that. So I kind of enjoy that a lot. Probably too much. But building that relationship and that rapport with them at those elementary schools is amazing, especially when I get into the classrooms at the middle school, because I'll be honest with you, when you got 1,000 kids, I won't remember them. But for some odd reason, when they come to the middle school and I go in their classrooms to talk, they're like, hey, you came to my school. Do you remember? You remember me with this, this, and that? Or they got other siblings and they want to discuss other stuff. So I think that what we're doing as far as getting into those elementary schools with the time that we have is pretty good. On a day-to-day basis for me, I'll be 100% honest with you and tell you no day is the same. So I may deal with certain students more often. This day, it could just jump around. When you got 1,000 kids and you're talking to them, there's so many different situations and scenarios that pop up. But for the most part, I think I do a pretty good job as far as building that rapport. Again, when you work in the middle school, especially with kids transitioning from elementary school, they're not accustomed to actually having an actual police officer in the building, walking the halls with them and stuff. So they would kind of be like, oh, a little terrified. And then you'll see like the 8th graders that's been there that know me. You'll see them coming up to me, patting me, just pushing me, like just having a good time interacting with me. And they'll start to see that. Then they'll get a little bit more warmed up to me. But I also started this tactic again with stickers, where I would just start slapping Webster Groves police badges on the kids on their backs and not letting them know. And then all of a sudden I got so many kids that was afraid to actually come up and approach me. that icebreaker is just broken, and then I got every kid coming to me asking for a sticker or something like that. Currently, right now, I'm in the classrooms during Health for Drug Awareness, and I'll be 100% honest with you. This is my 5th year in the schools, and I used to do Project Alert, which is the drug education program for kids, teenagers around this age, from anywhere from 6th to 8th grade. There was a lot of PowerPoints and videos and stuff like that. Some of it may have been a little dated, but it was still necessary, and information was still good. However, doing this for 5 years, I put a little twist on there. See, they call me OC, Officer Cameron, of course, and I'm not gonna lie, I made it fun. It's fun now. So I turned it into like a Family Feud game, one class where I'll be asking them questions, split them up into 2 teams. Sometimes, like if they both want the answers or they have the answers and they put their hands up at the same time, I'll be like, all right, it's time to go to the gauntlet, play rock, paper, scissors, getting them all engaged with that. And then also have something when we're starting to talk about alcohol, where I have drunk goggles. And it's a huge hit. They love the drunk goggles. I'm currently doing that now, where I have them put these drunk goggles on, and it makes them feel like they're intoxicated. But I don't just let them put them on. So then I have them do like a small obstacle course where they're taking water out of a pitcher and pouring it into a cup, picking up a tray, having to walk with the goggles on. I make them do like this heel to toe walk, shoot a ball into a basket, all this stuff while they're intoxicated. And then I kind of educate them and be like, hey, this is why drunk driving and all this stuff can be very serious, because you guys can see you can barely walk. Could you imagine driving a vehicle when you're able to drive? Just putting my own little twist to certain things. I try to see every single student. Recess is also something that I do at Hickson. That's something I can't get out of. I love it. I guess I'm a big kid at heart. I play football with them, basketball, Foursquare. I even got into the Gaga ball pit a few times with them. Yeah, that can be interesting. But if I'm not inside the classroom for the health and the drug awareness, then I'm also doing like social studies when they start talking about constitutional law, and I kind of bring my twist in there with that. I've actually gotten into some classrooms. I try to get in all the classrooms, whether different subjects. Like I've also been in the math classroom where I had to talk to one of our guys at Webster and try to figure out how we can take algebra and bring that into the classrooms. Because a lot of kids be like, what do I even need this for? I'm not going to use it. And so I was like, well, that's not very necessarily true. And so I brought a reconstructionist in, and we was like, hey, so if we're working on like a serious car crash, we can tell you using algebra methods on how fast this car was going, and how did the friction from whether it was on the asphalt to the grass, like how did the speed change? How did that affect that? And actually applying math to that so they can actually see with the algebra they're learning, they're able to calculate and give us an approximate speed a vehicle may have been traveling. I can go on for days. I've always watched the Harry Potter movies, but I started to realize like a lot of the kids still read that stuff. And I never read the books until I actually got into the school. So once I started reading the books, I would go into certain classrooms and talk about my favorite part of the book. There's so much more in the book than there is actually in the movies, and I did not know that. But I'm glad I read the books now. There's so many ways I used to do an after school program that was called Boys to Man. However, I was not the head guy, and that the guy just recently retired last year. So they're in the mix of actually finding somebody to replace Dr. Riley, who was in charge and who started Boys to Man. Boys to Man is basically a after school program at Hickson where you interact with a group of boys who necessarily, I'm not going to say they all need a father figure, but more like a mentor. And so we would go in and we would have conversation and bring in guest speakers. I've been a guest speaker. I've brought in other people, and it's just something for them to, another outlet for them to stay engaged and interact and really get to know these kids on a different level. one thing I learned as an SRO is like, yeah, I can interact with them in recess and talk to them in the halls, but when you actually get them in the classroom, you start getting to them at their settings, the way that they open up is amazing. Relationships that I built, it's crazy because even when I go work the high school games, like a lot of those kids still remember me and they still come up to me and they're like, OC, blah, 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 like having all these conversations. And they actually come back up to Hickson Middle School, and some of them want to show me their grades because, you know, I used to have conversations about that. And surprisingly, surprisingly, I wasn't a math whiz in high school or school period, but I actually go in and tutor kids one-on-one sometimes if they're struggling with some math. So yeah, but again, every day is different. I just take it one day at a time, and honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I enjoy doing what I do.
All right, thank you. Yeah, you do a lot. You and Cassidy do so much for our school, and I'm glad that you guys were able to come on and tell everybody exactly what you do. And I see it because I supervise you guys directly, and I see it every day, and I talk with you both every day and know what you guys do day in and day out. And it's so much work, but it's so rewarding at the same time because you're building these relationships with such young minds. It starts with young minds. And so I'm glad you guys shared that. And there's so many other stories that they didn't even share, that we could talk for days about what they do for the community and for the kids and the outreach. But yeah, I'm glad that you guys came on. And if there's any questions or comments or any ideas, share them with us. We'd love to hear it.
I got a quick question for both of you. Did you volunteer for this or were you assigned?
Oh, let me go first. Okay, I'm gonna be 100% honest with this one. When I first got into police work, there was absolutely no way I would have thought that I'd be working with 1,000 kids in the school. There was no way I wanted to do that. It's actually started off when I started doing secondary somewhere else, where I was working with a special school district. And some of the places where they would do secondary would be like kids with behavior problems and stuff like that. And I started to be like, man, I actually like this, like build a relationship with these kids. I'm like, these kids aren't bad. Like they just need somebody to talk to and kind of relate to. So that's what started it for me. And then a position at one of the Great Circle places came available, and I actually put in for that. That didn't work out for me. Happily for me, Hickson also popped up, and we had to go through an interview process. And then the district actually got to pick, or that principal got to pick who she would like or who they would like to be the SRO for their school. So I actually absolutely volunteered for it.
Awesome.
Did I know everything I was getting into when I did that? Absolutely not, but I would not take that back.
And you're happy you did, right?
I also volunteered.
So lucky.
Oh my gosh, camp. I also volunteered for this. I actually grew up and I had an SRO that I didn't feel did her job, and she wasn't like relating to the students or anything. And so that was really a motivator for me to do this, to show the kids and be here for them and get to know them and have that relationship. So just like him, I applied, I went through the process and interviewed, and I was chosen by the school district.
Awesome. Well, we're very thankful that you guys are doing this. I mean, you know, both of you. It's awesome for you to do it. And I've got a comment later in the meeting on how we could maybe use this to kind of promote what the police department is doing in the community. So
there are two things that had come to my mind. One is that you guys probably will have, I mean, you know what our board does more or less, and what we're here to do. And you guys probably have really good ideas that I feel like if you ever wanted to attend a meeting or, you know, shoot an email to me or anybody else on the board, or Chief Curtis, like your feedback is probably more valid than anybody else's, because you're really out there with the kids, you know. So I invite you to do that anytime. And the other thing that I was that came to my mind is like so I have my kids are 18 and 16, and so my daughter will say, I'm so scared to get pulled over by the plate. And I'm thinking, why are you so scared? You know, like, so what's the disconnect, do you guys think, between you know, they might have a relationship with you in school, and then where's the breakdown of not being able to see that, like, our officers are people, they're not trying, like, if you don't stop fully at a stop sign, or you are going 10 miles over the speed limit. I mean, I'm not talking for the like kids who are really doing crazy stuff out there, which there's probably a fair amount, but some are just doing, you know, like regular mistakes. Like, how do we help them understand that, you know, Officer Cam or Officer Cassidy, like, everybody's trying their best to build those relationships. That's my assumption. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So I will talk on this. I think that it starts with Cassidy and Cam. It starts with police officers like them who are in the schools, who spend a lot of time with these kiddos, and they are building these relationships with these kiddos. But then it also boils down to the police officers within Webster Groves who, you know, come into contact with individuals or maybe their mothers or fathers or themselves or what have you, and holding those community events and whatnot, that kind of brings that out to where they're not just having a relationship with two police officers, but they're actually having a relationship with, you know, 50 of us or however many of us that could come out and talk and get to really know these kiddos. You know, I could speak for myself, me as a lieutenant, I still, and I don't have to, but I still work secondary just to go to the basketball games, just so I can kind of get to know these kiddos, because I want to know who, you know, I want to know these kiddos and who are coming up and kind of build the bridge and the gap. And so I think it boils down to, it's not just two officers. That's a lot to ask of two cops. I think it boils down to all the officers who come in contact with these kiddos. And I can tell you, you know, just from being able to watch the interactions with the police officers, especially in the most recent years with kiddos, I feel like they tend to want to take the extra time to really get to build that relationship with these children. And that's very important. So I think as long as we stay on that right track and we continue to do that, and we have more than just one or two officers, but multiple officers, I think that we're on the right track. You know, Chief Curtis and I have talked quite a few times about different events we can hold, whether it's ice cream with the kids in the park or popsicles in the park, or just walking around in the neighborhood and kind of getting to know the kiddos. And, you know, Cam had mentioned stickers. Kids love stickers. I know it sounds silly, but they do. They love stickers. My 5 or 6-year-old now, she loves those little tattoo things that you get to put on. Kids love those things. You know, candy, things like that. It's the small things that make a big difference in these kids' lives. So, you know, honey, I know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
No
have
problem.
one
Any other
other question and then I'll stop. Are you in full uniform when you're in the high school and middle school?
I am not. I generally wear kind of tactical pants and then this polo. So this is actually generally what I wear.
Okay,
I don't wear my full belt. So I just have my badge, my ammo pouch, handcuffs, radio, and then my firearm, and that's it.
okay.
Same here.
Okay, like you said, I know Jillian has another commitment, so unless you have more questions, I'll let them go.
Thank you all.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah, kiddos.
Thanks both,
Okay.
She's like, come on.
Fabulous,
Cassidy.
fabulous. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you.
Well, this was recorded. So, there's one thing that we can take advantage of technology, I think, if we get permission from Cam and Cassidy and Jillian, that we can use some of this recording at one of our meetings that we meet with groups to kind of, say this is, it would be great if they could attend, but they're busy, right? So if we could take advantage of the technology and actually have them explain what they do. I mean, we have 0 attendees tonight. So the only ones that heard this are us.
I agree. I think that's a great idea.
And so,
Well, that's one of the
or
reasons.
put can we get recording? And I know when we get to the website section, I kind of dropped the ball on it, but can we put a link on the website or on our landing page to go to an interview, to go to something where they can say, this is what the police department's doing with our local school district?
We can certainly do that. It's one of the reasons why I sent the written material out to you is,
Yeah.
I think not most, I would say almost everyone really is not aware of what the SROs do and how hard they work and the relationships they build in the school. It's something, it's been going on really for the last 15, 20 years. And like Cam said, he's been there for 5 years, but Cam and Cassidy and people like Eric Weimer before her just did a great job. And it really, we can expand on that. It would be a good thing to expand on it and go to some elementary schools as well. But we have been doing that, and we are doing that. And like I said, they work really hard to do a good job with the schools, to form relationships with the kids and with the administration. And I just think that probably most people don't realize that that's the case.
Steve, did you see Centron just posted in the chat a question for you?
Yes, every one of our officers is, I think I sent that. If I didn't, I was remiss. But every one of our officers, with the exception possibly someone who's new and hasn't recently gone through the academy because it's become part of their curriculum, but they are all CIT trained, which is critical incident training. And a big part of that training is mental health, to deal with special needs, mental health issues, things like autism, impairments, physical impairments and mental impairments. The first part of it to be certified is a 40-hour class. You have to go for a week. And then every year you have to go for 8 hours of retraining. And as I said, I think right now every one of our officers are. Again, we get somebody that's new that hasn't been through an academy recently, we make sure that they get through and get that training. But all of our supervisors, all the commanders, everybody has been through it. We have a good relationship with behavioral health resources, with BHR, and with the Division of Family Services. Jillian does a big part of that, so that they're all the officers are trained in that. All the officers, whenever they encounter things with mental health issues, try and divert that into being helped, as opposed to diverting into a criminal justice system.
Lexi had a question too.
Yeah, two actually. So Chief Curtis, several weeks ago, the Alliance had a program where representatives from Behavioral Health Response presented, and they talked a lot about their partnership with St. Louis City Police. And I know that we don't have the same arrangement, I guess, because somehow our 911 calls are handled differently. But the officer who spoke was saying that in, I think, all of last year, and I could be remembering this wrong, but there were only 2 calls that were diverted to behavioral health, or, away from the police. That seemed like a surprisingly small number.
Well, I'm familiar somewhat with their program, but I can't speak for them. Our relationship with BHR is a little bit different in terms of generally it's not, call isn't going to get diverted from the 911 or from the radio assignment itself, which is the call that comes out. What will happen is the officers will get there, determine what the situation is, what the circumstances is, what the environment is, and then they will fill out a CIT report. That's a critical incident report, and then it'll be diverted to whatever social agency, whether it's BHR or, like I said, Division of Family Services or the adult services, social services, to try and get some assistance for that. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of it, but and certainly don't have anything close to what St. Louis City would have. But we do have enough that we do have a relationship with them. Like I said, it's the officers and people like Lieutenant McCoy. They have close contacts with them, and whenever we have those kind of incidents, that's when the report or the information gets diverted to them to try and get some assistance. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it happens afterwards. I had understood from, is it Officer Perks? Is that a
That's
right name?
Perks.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, he is talking about, but it wasn't like, I'm very visual, so he was speaking the information. I'm just very interested in that kind of information, that collaborations between. And then the other question I had is, I know that they go through the critical incident training, but is there like specific courses just in dealing with mental health and trauma responses, or?
There are specific courses dealing in that. They get, again, you have to remember, we've got 40, right now we have 44 officers on the street. It's difficult to get everybody trained in everything at one time, but incrementally officers do attend different classes specifically that it would address mental health issues or behavioral health issues. But everybody does get a big bulk of that when they go through the CIT. That's a big part of that core curriculum, and then they get the 8-hour refresher, which also has some of that in it. But there are specific courses, and our officers do attend those courses. I don't, off the top of my head, I can't tell you how many hours that we had. I do have some on the slides that I was going to try and get to the training stuff, but it was more directed some other things. But if you like, I can get you some information on how many hours training that individually, apart from the CIT, that we do get on, that the officers do get on that.
Yeah, thanks. Just interested.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Chief, I just wanted to follow up a little bit to make sure I understood what you said was correct. You said officer might arrive on the scene and then make a determination on what they need to do and then complete a CIT, and then someone from behavioral health will respond? Because that seems like a lot of time.
Well, if you're talking about an emergency incident where somebody needs attention immediately, that's a whole different ballgame. I mean, I would say, for instance, and probably it's, again, we don't have a lot of instances of these types of calls, but of the types of calls we have, this is probably one of the more frequent. If we have a juvenile who is being disruptive and has either psychological or issues that where they're acting out, we get a call from a parent. The officers will arrive on the scene. But they don't do a CIT report and then say, okay, we're out of here, and then send that. What they will do is they will get some help immediately for that person or for the family to try and help them on the scene and at the time. It's things like if you have an older adult, for instance, who's maybe living alone and obviously has some, it's obviously an officer that he may have some either mental health issues or some social issues or whatever it might be. That's the kind of thing where you would write the CIT report and then refer that to a social agency, make a phone call, follow up with the report, and then get some help from them later, try and get some help through the family or through social services. So it depends on it depends upon what's going on. But if it's something that requires, where somebody requires immediate assistance, that's not something where we walk away and then refer it to somebody else.
All right, thank you. I guess we're done with questions now. Are we ready to move on to the next
Sure.
agenda item? Okay, so that's you, Chief Curtis.
Right. I don't want to run us over. my intention was mostly to benefit the newer members, because everyone else has kind of sat through this, but it was to try and revisit some of the major areas that we talked about before, some of the major concerns that people had with our policies and procedures and our operations, and basically just kind of highlight it and hit some of the areas. And if you have questions, or at least they could see what we kind of have already gone through and talked about, and give them an idea, so that I don't want to say to catch up on it, but understand where we've been with some of the things. And I'm sure that they would probably have questions, and I don't know if we'll have time to answer everything tonight, because I want to respect everybody's time. But to do that, I got a PowerPoint slide. It probably takes about 15 minutes. So if you want to try and do that, I can do that.
Should we go ahead? And so why don't we say we'll have a goal to be done between 7:45 and 8 at the very latest?
I will make sure that I'm done right around 7:30.
Okay.
Again, I'll be moving through it quickly, because again, most of you have seen this. And I can always get the written material to the newer members. But again, I wanted to highlight it, especially the videos, because one of the things that we visited was, why do officers have assist cars? Why do you see 2 and 3 cars on a call sometimes? Or why do they behave this way on a traffic stop or a stop? What would make them act that way? And it's kind of one of the things that I wanted to try and get into. So I'm gonna try and share my screen, and hopefully I can get everything to work here. Is everybody able to see that?
Mhm.
Yes.
So the topics very quickly that I wanted to try, again, I want to try and cover as briefly and quickly as I can, so I'm not getting too in depth into it. There's accreditation. The police department, it was initially accredited in 2004, and we've been continuously accredited since then. We just recently received our 6th accreditation. That means there's like 300 and something policies that we have to adhere to for CALEA. Assessors come in. I believe I sent our last assessment report out in the email. Then one of the other things I wanted to address was the 8 pillars, which was one of the things that were highlighted about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. That was a concern and interest to a lot of people in the community. Traffic enforcement, racial profiling, vehicle stops, and training. On the 8 pillars, we have policies. We have had policies on every one of these since 2003 or 2004. It's part of our operation. It's part of our culture. It's everything. It's all of these things officers are well indoctrinated in. We revisit them, and we reinforce them at the briefings. Each section has to be revisited at least once a month. We have a restriction on any chokeholds or any respiratory restraint techniques. They are strictly prohibited. We consider them deadly force. As far as de-escalation, use of force should be only used with the greatest restraint, and only after discussion, negotiation, and persuasion have been found to be inappropriate or ineffective. Before using a firearm, police officers shall identify themselves and state their intentions where feasible. Obviously, if someone has a weapon drawn on them, or they aren't going to have time for that. But in any instance where there's any time and it's possible at all, the officers are required to identify themselves and state their intention if they are going to use a firearm. Every officer has the duty to intervene and report. A police officer who witnesses any type of due process violation, especially related to use of force, has a duty to intervene and take any action necessary to protect the victim's rights. Any occurrence must be reported as soon as practical to a supervisor or commanding officer. Police officers shall not fire at or from a moving vehicle except when the occupant or other vehicle is using or threatening to use deadly force, or it's being operated in a manner that's deliberately intended to strike an officer or a citizen. We have a use of force continuum. When use of force is appropriate, officers shall, to the extent possible, utilize an escalating scale of options that are based upon our use of force continuum. This is one of the things that we train on. Every officer is aware of what level is, what each level is, and where it's allowed. The members that are set on the board before have gone through our Milo training with the firearms training system. That's one of the things that we train on for the use of force continuum, to make sure that our officers understand what they are, when it's appropriate to use them, and how to use them. This is the in our policies and procedures. This is our use of force continuum template. Each officer, again, is aware of what level they may use and where it's appropriate to use. We have a use of force report policy. Anytime an officer uses anything other than verbal commands, it's considered a use of force. So even on soft hands control, a use of force report is required. The part 2 use of report is if there's an incident where the results of injury or an alleged injury or death, that's also required. The use of force reports are filed with the supervisor, and they move up the chain up to my office. I have to approve every use of force report. On traffic enforcement, obviously each officer has a duty to take the appropriate enforcement action for violations of law or ordinances that they witness or are reported to them. Traffic stops will never be made on the basis of a motorist's race, ethnicity, or economic status, but rather on articulable suspicion or actual violation of law or ordinance. Bias-based profiling, that's again a long-standing policy. It's been in place since 2000, well, before 2003, but it was put into written policy in 2002, right before we were accredited, and we're formulating our policies. Each supervisor is responsible for continually monitoring and examining all areas of police actions and activities under the directions to ensure that the general order is being followed. Any employee believes there is or is made aware of any violation of the general order will immediately report it to their supervisor. Any violation will be disciplined up to and including possible termination of employment. Vehicle stops. This is one of the things that I'm going to run through these videos very quickly, but I just want to give you an idea. It's not meant to shock anyone or to try and promote the fact that officers are in constant danger, because that's not the case. But it's to give you an idea of the kind of situations that officers in their training are aware do happen and that they have to be aware of. We have policies and procedures on how to conduct stops and what officers should and shouldn't do. And there are reasons for that. And again, sometimes people in general public understandably don't quite relate to how an officer reacts during the stop. But again, I've got 4 videos. Each of them show some unexpected use of force. And we'll give you an idea of what officers are thinking about and why they train and act the way they do sometimes on traffic stops, and why sometimes you'll see 2 assist cars or 1 assist car, and you would wonder, well, why would you have to have 2 cars here for this person? There are legitimate safety concerns and reasons. We try and restrain that as much as possible, but we also want to keep our officers safe. And the videos are kind of self-explanatory, and like I said, I'll be brief. I'll start them and stop them at points where that will give you an idea of what I'm talking about.
I'm going to give you a brief overview of an incident that began on July 27, 2018 at around 10:15 p.m. Mission officers conducted an investigative stop in the 9400 block of Noble Avenue after one of the officers recognized the driver from a previous police contact. The officers walked up to the car to speak with the driver, who was later identified as Richard Mendoza. Mendoza was asked to exit his vehicle. As he got out of the car, he produced a handgun and immediately fired his gun at the officers.
How you doing? Good? Haven't seen you in a while. Still on probation? 911, ma'am. What? 911. You just discharged? No, 911. Oh, 911. Okay, I'm gonna have you step out of the vehicle. You don't have anything on you, right?
We'll go on to the next one.
11. I have the 2840 out of Pennsylvania. King Henry Lincoln 4596. King Henry Lincoln 4596. No! No! If you stop, I'll leave. Okay, let go. No, let go. Let go. Hey, no! That's it. No, that's it. No, 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 please don't do it. Please, please, please don't do it.
8521 shots fired by the police. One suspect down.
An Arkansas police chief says he's hoping to use a violent dash cam surveillance tape to train officers on how to handle late night traffic stops. The tape shows officers in Truman, Arkansas, questioning a man who was wanted for an unrelated warrant. Officer Jonathan Schmidt opened the back door of the man's car, and a second man, Jerry Lard, suddenly jumped out and opened fire. Tape shows Lard shooting and taunting officers. Schmidt can be heard later on the tape begging Lard not to shoot him again. Officer Schmidt died later of his wounds.
Then this next one, unfortunately, is one of our own officers encounter, which I'm sure most, not all of you are familiar with. I'll start with the radio assignment call that came out that he got. He assumed he was going to go assist the motorists on the highway, which is something that typically officers do, frequently.
9381. A motorist assist, westbound 44 Elm, westbound 44 just before Elm. Possibly need access from Murdoch. A white vehicle in the left lane blocking. Hey, what, that's clear to go? 8383. We go look at that vehicle. I'm going to back up from this. I'll take that 1046. Turn around to the 1046 of 2022.
Again, that was basically, again, to highlight why officers need to be cautious, why they go through the training that they go through. It's, again, not to highlight the dangers of police work, but to give you an idea of why it is sometimes that officers need to do things, they have procedures to do things that sometimes the general public don't quite understand. Do you have any questions about any of that? The last thing I want to go through tonight again was the training. Training is one of the things that we emphasize. It's a focus. It's important that our officers be highly trained, highly educated, not just on the use of force types of things, but also on the racial profiling, on mental health issues. There's a myriad of a number of things that officers need to be aware of to be able to do their jobs, to meet the expectations of the community and expectations of the department. This past year, officers received over 1,800 hours of training. 120 of those hours were in anti-bias, implicit bias, and racial profiling. 42 of the hours were in de-escalation and minimizing use of force, and 31 hours were in diversity in the workplace. And that was all I had. Again, I just wanted to kind of revisit and go over some of the ground that we've already gone over for the newer members to maybe give you a little understanding of what we have talked about. And if you have questions or things that I can expand on, in the future, please let me know.
I was just curious, is that the amount of training, was that per officer or kind of a group environment training that you guys conducted?
Each officer is individual training. The 1,832 hours was for the department as a whole, but each officer individually receives training. The mandatory training is 24 hours of post-certified training you have to get each year to maintain your certification. In a typical year, we more than double that. When COVID hit, it shut down some of the in-person classes. So we went from close to 3,000 hours of training down to about 2,000 hours. We were gradually getting that back up to where we'd like to have it. But again, it's one of the things we emphasize. It's one of the things that's important. It's hard to do. We only have 45 officers. They have to go to training so many hours. They get vacation time. We have to cover the street. So it makes it really difficult to get that in, but it's something that's important and it's something that we do. And we do a lot of in-service training. For instance, we have the Milo, the firearms training system downstairs. Whenever we get back in person, I like to take the newer members down there and kind of how we use that training and what it's used for. That's all I had for Katie, unless somebody has questions.
Lexi, was your question answered?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dale. And maybe, if we have additional questions, we can put those on the agenda for next time.
Sure. And yeah, everybody has my email and my phone number. So if you have something that I can answer, if you don't want to wait for a meeting, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call.
All right. Thank you. Kevin, do you have an update for us from the city council the working session last week?
Yeah, I honestly don't know, can't remember what I said. But essentially, I kind of pointed out how important it was that we thought that the language that was suggested by the Alliance that we discussed as a board was unanimously approved with some modifications. And that we thought it was important to lower the age for the student representative because we have had a difficult time filling that role, and that to expand it to Webster University students we thought was important because they're a vital part of our community, and the accountability issues that are now in the suggested wording of the ordinance, so that our board is held accountable to report back to the community on what we plan on doing and what we have accomplished. And David Franklin had one question about how we are going to reach out to other schools other than Webster Groves High School for that student representative. And I told him I couldn't answer that question because as far as I know, we have not decided how to do that because it's not part of the ordinance now. Right now, it's limited to Webster Groves High School. I did. Chief Curtis did mention that Tina Scott is the representative from the high school, and she's the one that tries to find a student within the Webster Groves High School that would be interested in serving as a student liaison member of the board. So that question was answered. Mayor Welch then deferred it to the attorney, who's going to look at the language to make sure that it is consistent with other ordinances, as far as how the structure of the language and the structure of the ordinance to make sure that it follows those guidelines. And as soon as that's done, my guess is it will probably be discussed at potentially the next council meeting.
I think, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am, we can.
I don't know what, my camera has gone kaput, so I'm here, but Kevin did a really nice job. But there are just a few things that we need to look at for consistency purposes. And I think we're ready to go with that. So.
All right, well, thank you for the update. So that will just be, what is the next step then?
The
Did we
next,
do anything?
the next step is that it'll go on to one of the city council agendas. I don't know whether that'll be the next meeting or the meeting after. It'll be in the form of a resolution, and then it'll be up for first and second reading, which usually brings some discussion, and then a third reading, which is the time for passage. I don't think there will be any issues whatsoever with it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's move forward to sort of our follow-up cleanup from our meeting in January. For my part, I contacted Jamie Morse, who's one of the publishers of the Webster Kirkwood Times. She thought our work and what we're doing would be a great idea for a story. She contacted Melissa Williamson, who's a writer, and Melissa's supposed to reach out to me. She hasn't done that yet, but that's kind of where we are with getting some visibility through the Webster Kirkwood Times. So we got that. Then Kevin, landing page.
I haven't done anything.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, but I do know that Chief Curtis mentioned that they're going to redesign the entire Webster Cove's website. And I know Jen Starkey's been incredibly busy the last couple of months. But I will try to reach out to her between now and our March meeting as to what we can do. After hearing the presentations tonight, it's like, if we could somehow, and this is one thing I'm going to talk to Jen Starkey about, if we can somehow get some video links to some of that information. And then I think that one of our meetings that we have with the community groups is we do a show and tell of the landing page. And we kind of show people how to navigate through, how to get to the board, how to get to the links that are associated with the police department, what's included in in other words, kind of a training session on how to get to that information that's there.
That could be maybe included in the article potentially too. And for the newspaper.
Yeah, I don't know. A written article in a newspaper would be hard to. I think in technology, my historical background is that it does better if it's a show and tell versus a written. I'm kind of like Lexi. I like to see it. I'm a very visual person. I mean, I'm sure we can mention it and maybe direct people on how to get there. But I think it definitely should be a topic of discussion when we meet with other groups on how to get that information. And then what do we want included on that landing page? So, but I just need to reach out to Jen and find out what the timeline is for the city on revamping their website, and what that process is going to entail, and when that's going to occur, and how we can modify our landing page appropriately. I just don't know what they're going to be doing with it. So the other thing is communication. Well, yeah, and the other thing is the email, instead of going to Dale, the email going to Katie and then to us. So, I just don't know how all that's going to work out on the new website. So, Do you have any other information on that, Dale? On what they're talking about?
I do not, but it's a total redesign. So I think we probably need to be a little patient. And then whenever the design gets, whenever they have the package ready and they roll it out, I think that would be the time to work with Jen Starkey on the landing page.
Yeah. Do you know where they are in that? Or are they at the very beginning of that process? Do you know?
No, they're close. They're getting close to the end.
No, they are getting close to the end. I think the design has been done, and I think they're moving along pretty quickly with that.
Okay. Jerry, when do you think would be a good time for me to reach out to Jen Starkey?
I think you can reach out to her anytime.
Anytime? Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Then my next follow-up is from our last meeting. Emerson Smith said that he would be happy to help us get connected with the North Webster Coalition and get on their agenda. I don't know if they're meeting in person yet. My suspicion is maybe they haven't yet, but maybe we'll soon. And I don't know if any of us, I haven't had any contact with Emerson, and I feel like somebody on the board had said that they would follow up with him. Lexi, was that you?
I can tell you about it because I keep up with the North Webster Neighborhood Coalition. Their March meeting, which is always on the first Thursday of the month, their March meeting this month is being devoted to having a council candidate session, and they're doing that on Zoom. And I think they opened up for an in-person meeting, and then they went back to Zoom again, which is what so many people have been doing. You could probably, the chair of that organization is Rosalind Croft, and Katie, I can send you her information so you could contact her directly. And then I would talk with her about setting something up maybe for the first Thursday in April or the first Thursday in May.
Okay, that sounds good. Lexi,
But
you
I'll
had your
send you
hand
her
up.
contact stuff.
Thanks.
It was, I think what I had mentioned is that I know Rosalind Croft. I mean, it's not like we're best buds, but we've met several times. And so I would be happy to reach out to her. If that's something that would be helpful.
Oh, I think it would be
to the board.
great. I think it would be great.
So we're looking at a future meeting because their group was one of several that we were brainstorming, like meeting with others. Because I know we also talked about Webster Rock Hill Ministries as a group that might be helpful to meet their volunteers and so forth. Okay, I will contact Rosalind then and inquire about a future meeting.
Thank you, Liz.
Is that in lieu of me, someone contacting Emerson?
Yeah, I think it's in lieu of somebody contacting Emerson. It's Rosalind who really runs the meetings and who is the chair. And so I think that's where you go directly to her. She's planning them. And so, and Lexi, if you need her contact information, let me know. I have her phone and stuff. But I think I would go directly to to Rosalind, because as I said, she is the one who plans the meetings.
All right. And then, so then Dr. Scott, not Dr. Scott Gresh, but Dr. Tina Scott she's not here tonight. So we'll follow up with her about somebody from the high school potentially being on our board. And then kind of to piggyback on where our SROs were taking us, which is, what might be the next steps that I think we were all a little bit energized last time about doing more. What could the PCEB do to facilitate or be part of what the SROs are doing when they go to the elementary schools and helping build relationships from a young age? I don't know if I have any brilliant thoughts on that right this minute. Does anybody else?
I spoke with the person who's doing the studios for the Webster Art Fair in June. And Dale, I don't know if I make a connection with you, but they'd be really happy to do something that would be an art project that's related to the police.
Sure. I mean, you can have, excuse me, fighting a head cold. You can have them either contact me or they can contact Jillian.
Okay,
She would be the one that would probably be spearheading it, but if
Yeah.
they want to contact me initially, that's fine.
okay. What are the other, we had talked about finding those community projects at the last meeting. And this is one that might be kind of fun.
We did have two officers assist North Webster Rock Hill Ministry with their food pantry handout, and we will continue to do that. I'm sorry, Lexi, you have your hand up. Did you have a question?
Well, it's a thought that I've been noodling since our SROs gave their presentations about all the great work that they're doing with the students and the board's our enthusiasm about maybe looking into extending that kind of programming. And, you know, I started out as an educator, it's like a whole lifetime ago, but it just struck me like what this little thing is niggling on my mind. And I would feel so much more comfortable if we had that representative from education on our board before we start jumping in to say, oh, let's extend all these things. It just feels like there's an area of expertise. There's so much education that goes into being a good high school counselor, a teacher, and so forth. And it's not at all to diminish all the great work that is being done now, but it's just so important that I think that we could be a little more informed about it. So that's all.
Lexi, I agree with you. You know, I'm a school psychologist by day, and so I totally understand your perspective, and I'll be happy to fill that role until such time as we get someone else. But certainly, I appreciate the understanding that we have to be judicious in how we include officers in elementary, middle school, high school, and beyond what they're already doing. You know, but saying that, I also certainly believe wholeheartedly that especially in minority communities, a lot of the fear from officers comes at such a young age from in the home. Just conversations that go back and forth about police officers said flippantly, and that sticks with children. So the earlier we can have positive influences, I think the better. But those are things we can certainly talk about as we move on.
I really appreciate both of those inputs. So I think that what we're saying is like, let's put that on hold. Also, Dr. Scott's not here, so she will have a lot of good input on that, at least at the high school level. And so maybe it's just a discussion that continues. But it does make me curious, anything that any of you want to put on the agenda for the next meeting, something that we need to be moving forward on, or that we haven't thought about yet? The survey.
Yeah, I mean, this meeting's going a little long, but on the survey, I did find, I actually had it saved as a favorite. There were 126 responses. Let me share it. Can I share it really quick?
Well, I honestly, Kevin, I'd prefer to just put it on for next time.
Just
Is that
put it on for
okay?
next time. Okay.
Yeah.
So I did find it. I don't know how to get I'll see if I can get the link to everybody, but I'm not sure how to get the link to everyone. But I'm gonna try to get that link to everyone. But I'll be able to actually pull it up on Zoom, or I don't know. Are we gonna be in person next time?
I don't know.
We should be in person next time. As of March 1, the boards can go back in person, and the public can attend, but we'll still have it on Zoom for those that can't attend.
Okay, so when if we're all in person, I'm sure I can actually pull it up on Zoom. Are we going to meet in the council conference room again?
Yes, we'll meet in the council conference room. I don't know, the mask mandate, I would assume will probably still be in place. And even if it's not, so if then it would be optional, it would be up to you, but we'll meet in the conference room and like I said, the public can attend if they like. It might, I'll check, it might be a good idea if we think somebody from the public's going to be there, to actually have in the council chamber so we can spread out a little bit. The only problem with that again is the Zoom, but I'll work out the logistics to it and let you know.
Okay. All right. So for next time, I have the survey to be a big agenda item for us, some good discussion and hopefully movement on that. Updates on the website, updates maybe on an article in the Webster Kirkwood Times, contact with the North Webster Coalition, see where that's going, and then some talk about with expertise from some school folks on how we can or what their input is about our involvement there. Am I summarizing that okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right, thanks everybody. Hold on, I forget, am I supposed to move to adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Do I ask somebody to move to adjourn or do
I move that we adjourn.
Thanks.
I second.
All right. Thank you all. See you
All
on
in
the-
favor?
Oh, aye.
Aye.
I'll see you on the 29th, right? Of March is our next one, I think.
That's good. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
All right.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, Nell, for the recap.
Bye.
Bye.